Hi guys, welcome to Interior Insights. I'm Jane and we are standing in front of an apartment that is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. It's colorful, it's bold, it's vibrant, but at the same time it's perfectly organized and just has this coherent and beautiful design story. If you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure to subscribe. This apartment is the home of a Brazilian and German family of 4 who lives here, and you can just really feel the energy throughout the place. As we come in, we are already in the hallway. The entire hallway has been painted in this bright yellow color, and you just have this bold contrast of this intense, bold yellow color and all of the historic details. For the floor of the apartment, we have historical beams from pitch pine trees, and they just have these beautiful lines all over them, and they're just this beautiful color. And we have very high walls, and the ceilings again have all of this rich wainscoting. The hallway itself is covered in all of these bold accents. For example, on one side we have a piece of wallpaper that is draped over one side, and that again visually marks and accentuates the height of the ceiling. At the same time, we have all of these different pieces of artwork that have been collected throughout their travels, mostly while visiting their family in Brazil, but also while going on a little holiday to Italy or just all over the world. Another detail that I love is this beautifully tinted round mirror that we have. It just reflects yourself as well as your surroundings through this bronze filter, and it just creates yet again another color world. Here we enter the dining area, and as soon as you come in, you see the couple's love for plants. All over the apartment we have gigantic and beautiful plants standing, and you don't just have these little plants that serve as decoration, but the plants really act as sculptures in the apartment themselves. We have a very generous room layout, and in the center of the room we have a gigantic slab of wood that has been turned into the dining table, and around it the family or friends gather to eat. And we have all of these different chairs that are standing around it, and what I love so much about the apartment is just the fact that you just have this constant mix of old and vintage materials and objects that have been found in the flea market and designer items and furniture. And then this contrast is again accentuated through all of the wild and green plants that stand throughout the place. I mean, look at this plant. It's absolutely fabulous. Another thing I love about the apartment is the fact that we just have this beautiful wallpaper draped all over one side. It's again a very modern thing to do, and it really adds this very strong graphic element to the apartment, because we have this black background of the wallpaper and all of these colorful plants and flowers that are just popping off of it, and they just seem very alive. Wallpaper is a great way to break up the square feeling of a room, or like the straight angles in a room, because it just creates a whole another level of dimension. Above the table we have a beautiful bold lamp that is almost like a sculpture. It is just made of these organic shapes that are filled with rattan, and it just looks very eclectic and beautiful. Also, a quick update from editing this week's video. If you want more behind the scenes content and interior design tips, go follow our Instagram. If you want to learn more about the 5 mistakes that 90% of people make when it comes to color, you can get my free guide where I show you also how to fix all of these mistakes. If your color game is already great, then you are one of the few people, because it is literally the #1 thing that people ask me. It won't be free forever, so do yourself and the guests who visit you a favor and get the free guide. You can get it either by clicking the link into the description, or by scanning this QR code, by taking out your phone, opening the camera app and pointing it at the QR code, and it will redirect you and give it to you. It's completely free. And another favorite of mine in this room is that hanging on the wall we have a plate collection of Fornasetti artworks, and this again is just an organized way to showcase your collection and to add some graphic elements and life to your design. Because the couple has 2 kids, in every room we have little kid stations for them to play. For example, here we have a little drawing area, and even though there's 2 kids living in this room, everything is thought about and the kids' needs are really incorporated into the design. Behind this cork cabinet, there is actually a little home bar hidden, and when you open it, you just have mirrors that are reflecting the light and that just create a little wow moment inside your design. What is so incredible about these historic buildings in Hamburg is the fact that we always have these sliding doors that are always hiding inside of the actual walls. And they allow you to close the space to create a more separate and formal function, or to open it and to just visually let the energy flow through the two spaces. So this is actually already the living room area. And again, you can just see how much space there is in this apartment and the meticulous attention to detail and to creating just these beautiful and thoughtful compositions. You can see that the living room itself has an irregular shape because we are like at the corner of a street. So the building isn't actually square at the end, but it's kind of has like a hexagon shape. The room setup is divided into 3 different areas. The carpets on the floor visually separate these areas from each other. We have a piano with a gigantic piece of cow leather lying below it. Over here we have the sofa area, and you can see that above the light blue sofa we again have this beautiful composition, and I believe that this is really where the magic in this design lies, is that on the one hand everything is really eclectic and bold and you have all of these visual details, but on the other hand it's still very organized, nothing is lying around, and that's just very difficult to master. So above the sofa we have 3 shelves that have also been painted in this pastel petrol blue, and on top of them we just have this collection of family memories, trips and holidays the couple went to, and other little objects that inspired them. And even though it's a lot of objects standing around, they are perfectly organized, kind of even sorted by color, and this just again creates this very eclectic and thoughtfully curated place. Like I always say, with plants it's important to not have them standing all over the place, but to have mindful collections of plants. And this is just exactly what has been done here. So over here we again have another little jungle of a bunch of plants, big and small pots and big pots. Sometimes they are elevated. And when you come into this room, you are just really greeted by this fresh and crisp green color of the plant. And they again just create this unexpected aspect to the design, because you don't really know where the room ends or how many plants are actually hiding here. Over here is the 3rd little island in the living room. Again, it is visually zoned by a carpet. On top of this brown vintage carpet, we have a very unique brown leather sofa that has also been found on a flea market. Here you can see that we have a lot of different shades of brown that are finding themselves together and just creating this warm and relaxing design. As for the 3 artworks that are framing the wall, they were also found in Brazil, and you can just really feel the Brazilian atmosphere, and the Brazilian art just creates this unique and beautiful vibrancy. Now let me take you to the heart of the home, and that is the kitchen. And I think if I had to decide for one room which was my favorite, at the end it probably would be the kitchen. Because I absolutely adore the blue and white checkered tiles. When the couple moved in here 4 years ago, they were still part of the historic aspects and details of this house. So we don't know when the house was built, but these tiles have been here for a long time. Again, we have the pitch pine wooden floors, which is uncommon, but very cool for a kitchen. And we have the unique moldings and the high ceilings. And you can see that this is where the historic oven used to be, because here we have again tiles on the floor. And I love it when you can just read the historic details in an apartment and just see what the people who built this intended to do or how they lived in this space. And we still have the historic oven. On top of it, we have this one sleek kitchen countertop with black paneling that just fades into the background and just creates a perfectly dark backdrop for all of the colorful objects that we have placed on top of them. And you can see that because we have this black backdrop, something like a red pot or a yellow salt and pepper grinder just really visually pops and just creates this very cool effect. On both sides of the kitchen, we have these shelves added that again act as open storage. And whenever you have open storage solutions, there's always a possibility for them to just go all out of hand because you just completely lose control. But here we again have this meticulous organization and just these beautiful colors that accentuate the design. On the other side in the kitchen, we have a vintage wooden table where the family has breakfast. Again, on top of the table, we have two gigantic farn trees that are just growing and just creating, again, this dynamic and lively scene in the apartment. On this side, we actually again have another bookshelf that is the same height as the other one. And here we have all of the different cookbooks that the family collects because the family here really likes to cook and to have guests over and to try new recipes. So again, through the beautiful majestic hallway, we enter the bedroom. As you come in, you can see that again, the space is flooded with light. Each of these rooms has actually their own little balcony where you can look outside and look at the historic facades. You can see that we have one square room and all of the walls are kept in white and the ceilings still have these historic rich moldings that we also have in the other rooms. Now, because this is the bedroom, there is a much calmer color palette, but everything is still thoughtfully designed. On one side, we have a gigantic white wardrobe that fades into the background and almost acts kind of like a wall. And behind me, we have a lush, very high profile bed that is very comfortable and just makes you want to jump in. And you can see that the bed is very comfortable and cozy because we have these different layers of fabrics that are put on top of the bed, and we have these overthrows and everything is color coded. Like in every other room, we have a gigantic plant that acts as a sculpture and just adds this freshness. Over here, we again have another little seating situation. We have a small sofa in a dark blue velvet fabric that again just is very luxurious and comforting. And then again, we have some yellow accents, and I just love the attention to color as well as the attention to detail in the space. And on top, again, we have an artwork that is from Brazil, as well as a vintage lamp that has been sourced in the flea market. This is the balcony. And over here, you can just enjoy your cup of coffee in the morning, overlooking the beautiful historic facades of Hamburg. Now let me show you the kids' bedroom. Now, this is the kids' bedroom. Because the kids are raised both Portuguese as well as German, they have two separate bookshelves for each, one the German books and one the Portuguese books, and they are just on both sides of this beautiful little farmer market. This kids' room just screams of order, and that is because while designing the kids' room, every need of the kids was anticipated and thought about, and storage solutions were created for their toys and their needs. And I just love how colorful and bold and beautifully creative this kids' room is. It's really the heart of the home and the paradise. Another thing that I like is also the molding in the ceiling that has been painted blue, that just again adds this very playful and colorful accent. Or on top of the bed, we actually have a lot of stars added so that when the kids wake up at night, they wake up under the stars. We just have this beautiful, warm and calming atmosphere with a lot of rugs and a lot of textures that enrich the design and that just create this vibrant and fun environment for the kids to grow up in. So this is the first small bathroom. All of the tiles in the bathroom are still original. So we just have these vintage pastel blue tiles that just create this very charming and princess-like atmosphere. And you can see that even this space has been thoughtfully decorated. For example, on top of the sink, we again have a vase with dried flowers, or up here in the corner, we actually have 3 little artworks that have been found on a holiday in South Africa. And again, it's just these details that count. Now, this is the proper bathroom. Let me show you. Again, we have all of these beautiful blue pastel tiles, and here they are actually accentuated with this incredibly colorful and floral wallpaper that has been draped around the top. And you can see that this again creates this luxurious, almost spa-like atmosphere. Again, you can see that the kids' things have their own time and place in the design. So the bottom areas of the shelf are for the kids where they can store their things. And like in the rest of the apartment, we have one or two unique plants that act as pieces of art and that just add this elegant and vibrant gesture to the place. We have this very tropical bohemian atmosphere because we have all of these rattan baskets where the flowers are kept or where the laundry is kept. So you just have this very light and playful design. Another room that we have in this apartment, and this is the room that is actually mostly usually missing in apartments, and that is a big, generous storage space. And the couple actually decided to not just put all of their things that they aren't using in here and just close the door and never look at it again, but they actually thought about how they want to live, what needs they have, and how to create a space where you actually want to come inside and do your laundry, for example, or where you actually want to come inside and sort in all of your food. Here we even have a little chalkboard and again some books for the kids. So they also even have their own little area over here. And over here we just have a multitude of functions. You have your laundry area, you have your food storage, and again you have just your beautiful cutlery and ceramic plates that are being stored, but at the same time they're also really visually displayed so that when you come in you just have the possibility to look at something beautiful. Thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you liked it, and I would move right in if I could, let me tell you. If you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure to subscribe, and I will see you next week. Hi guys, welcome to Interior Insights. I'm Jane and we are standing in Hamburg in front of an absolutely incredible 300 square meter loft. If you love eclectic and industrial design that is paired with a lot of vintage details, this video is for you. If you like the video, make sure to subscribe. Come in. So this building was built in the beginning of the 20th century, and formerly this was actually a woodworking studio. The photographer rented this loft and turned it into an absolutely unique and incredible studio. So this is the ground floor, and you can see that as you come in we have a very spacious layout. Because this is a loft, there is literally just one room per floor. The loft entails as much space as you need to just let your creativity run free. The intent of the renovation wasn't to cover it up and turn it into a glamorous space, but to really stay true to the authentic history of the loft. So we can see this in all of the materials that have been chosen and all of the old historic details that have been kept. For example, the floor is still original, and you can see all of the beautiful marks on the floor that have been stayed here. This place is so unique because you just have an array of windows on both sides. And the windows are also still original from the 20th century, so they let a lot of cold in. You have these beautiful original steel frames that divide the window and add a lot of structure and repetition. And when we look outside, you actually have a river. This space is connected to one of the many canals that Hamburg has to offer. This place just has a lot of touch points that really remind me of New York and of all of the industrial lofts that we can find there. Over here we have a little seating area, and you can see that everything is held in very warm colors to really feel inviting. The space itself is zoned by multiple carpets that are draped on top of each other, and they create this lush ambience that only happens when you layer texture upon texture. And I just love all of these really cool prints. Two deeply orange colored sofa chairs were placed next to each other, and they just create this very vintage 70s atmosphere. And you can see that you just have these really old materials such as this cord fabric or this stylish acrylic backdrop, as well as this white acrylic table. And you can see that this design and this composition really lives from all the different shapes that are collected here. So here we have two circular chairs that again bring a new dynamic to the space. Behind me, we have the only wall that has not been covered up by new plaster or paint, and you can just see its history. And like I already said before, formerly this place used to be a woodworking studio where just a bunch of people lived and worked and created things from wood. And when the photographer rented this loft, all of the walls still had a lot of old pin-up girls on top of them. He decided to keep one of them just to keep the history alive. And this is also the only wall in the entire apartment that is still original and that still has and entails all of the historic details. Also, the photographer has a big love for mirrors. More on that later. Over here, we have a simple kitchen that consists just of an L shape, and there's a bigger kitchen upstairs. But yes, whenever there's photo shoots here, you have a space to make some drinks or to prepare some food. And we can see that everything is just thoughtfully manufactured and with great attention to detail. Now, let's go upstairs. Oh, but before we go upstairs, this woodworking bench really also is original and is one of the benches that used to belong to the former woodworking studio. So, this pair of stairs was also built by the architect himself. Before he built these stairs, you actually had to go outside and go up different stairs. So this narrow space of stairs really just connected the top and the bottom floor and turned it into an open space apartment. So this is the upper floor, and this space consists of one 160 square meter gigantic room. But before I show that to you, this is the mirror cabinet that I've been talking about. So the photographer has a great passion for collecting a bunch of different things, and he started collecting these antique mirrors that have a curve in them. And he turned this place into just a majestic, beautiful cabinet, and we can see that the walls are painted indigo blue, and you just have all of these gold circular shapes on top of them, and it's just an absolutely fabulous moment. Now let's go into the big room. The absolute magic of this loft is the fact that we have one gigantic room that is framed from both sides completely with windows. So we just have this beautiful lighting from both sides, and the space really is beautifully structured while allowing a lot of flexibility and allowing your creative spirit to roam free. To my right, we have a kitchen, and the kitchen itself underlines just the amount of space that we have here, because we have two freestanding kitchen islands. One that is very high and that can be transformed into a bar where you can gather with your friends and entertain, and another one that is a bit lower that encompasses everything that a kitchen needs to have. Everything that you can find in this loft has some sort of history and has been custom created. For example, the countertops of the kitchen are old pieces of flooring that have been glued together and turned into something unique. And you can just see, again, the attention to detail and just the creative approach with which this loft has been designed. While all of the historic details have been kept original, you can hear the creaking floor, and you can see, again, the structure that is holding up this building with all of the columns that really frame this big, spacious room. We even still have some historic details from the old woodworking studio. For example, this metal beam on top here works kind of like an excavator, and it's just perfect whenever the photographer has a photo shoot here, because the metal beam goes all the way to the outside, and you can just like leverage sofas up here and just create all kinds of crazy things. And this is just something that you wouldn't find in a normal space like this. Over here is kind of a lawyer's area. You have a very big table that is framed by 4 black Eames chairs, and we actually have a bunch of different Eames chairs here, and it's just really cool. For example, over here we have the lobby Eames chair, and you just have this very lush and comfortable atmosphere whenever you're working. And another thing that I actually didn't know is that formerly these big trésors always had 2 keys, so that both owners or 2 people were always needed to open it, so that not one person could just rob the other person. And this is why here we have 2 historic keys. And I think that that is really cool. Another thing that I really love is the fact that on this side of the loft we just have one gigantic cabinet that again mimics these vintage cabinets, or it kind of reminds me also of a lawyer's office. And you just have these very industrial shelves. And my favorite thing about this loft is the way that lighting has been used to create accents. Because we have such a big space, we have literally 10 or 20 different sources of light that stand here and that illuminate the space and that just create this absolutely unique ambience and vibrance. Just on this side of the wall, we have 3 different or even 4 different lights that illuminate the wall. And whenever you're creating a space, it's really all about lighting and using different sources of lighting to create an atmosphere of play and fun. Even though the space is an open plan living concept, you still have a very classical layout that orients itself on the axis in the center of the room. Over here we have the living room area that is marked by 2 sofas that are facing each other. And to take the seriousness out of the design, we have a bunch of vintage pillows that are knitted and that just have a lot of very colorful colors and bring a lot of fun into the design. On top of the marble designer table, we have a candle holder from Stoffnagel, which is a very classic and iconic design piece because it allows you to create your own design. Both sofas have sofa tables that are very rustical and industrial, paired by 2 lampshades. You know you're in the space of a very creative person when you see the amount of books that are just being kept here. In whatever direction you look, there are just books piled on top of books. A difficulty when designing this loft was that because we have so many windows, we actually don't have that many empty walls to put shelves and to store things. And this is why the photographer had to come up with a creative solution. And so he turned one entire wall of the loft into a gigantic library to store all of his photographs and also his entire book collection. And later, on the opposite side of the loft, I will show you even more creative storage solutions. So yes, you can see that behind me we just have an array of books, and it can quickly be overwhelming to sort your books because they come in all different shapes, sizes and color. So it's sometimes a little bit difficult to create a coherent design. But whenever you have a shelf that provides a thorough structure, such as these perfect 40 by 40 grids, this really creates the base of your design to let your creativity run loose. Like I already said, over here is the book collection, and over here we actually have an old artwork of the photographer. He had a series where he stacked a bunch of different objects on top of each other, and here we have a few different chairs put on top of each other, and I will blend in the photo. And you can just see that it's not about being perfect, but it's really just about collecting and staying true to who you are and your interests. For example, here we have a lot of different globes that are just being collected. And I would have never thought that a bunch of globes next to each other paired up would be something interesting or something that makes a space look amazing. But it did. So always stay true to your interests. So this is just a single reminder that whenever you're collecting something, it's always good to pair the things and to create a certain little moment or a certain composition throughout your design. Like in the rest of the loft, functionality was really paired with fun to create a unique design, and the same goes for this table. This table consists of an old ping pong table that was found upon moving into this apartment, and it was kept a ping pong table. At the same time, it's a big, generous table to gather with your friends, and we have a lot of different vintage school chairs that are surrounding it, and you just again have this beautiful throwback to your school times. And the same goes for all of these artworks. And you can see that the space holds his own personal artistic development you can just see all of these architectural photographs. Like I already told you, the lack of storage solutions was a big problem in this loft, and so the photographer decided to create his own cabinet, and he actually designed his own shelving system that encompasses 2 different rooms where you can store all of your things. So this is the shelf that I'm talking about, and you can see that it is kept in this beautiful rusty red color. He designed the shelf himself, and it was custom built after his dimensions. And you can see that this is just an answer to a complex problem that this loft had. Again, there's a lot of space to keep all of your books and to showcase your personality and to just store random objects. Or on this side, we have a little vase collection. And the secret that I've been telling you about is the fact that actually this closet holds 2 different rooms. So over here, we actually have a bathroom, a toilet that has been hidden. You can see that the inside of the powder room is kept in the same turquoise green as the kitchen, and you have all of these little Danish details, and at the same time you still have this rustical design and an industrial loft, and it just stays true to the design story. And here we have a full functioning music setup with 2 boxes from Grundig and just boxes that surround the entire loft and that just create an absolute unique design. Hi guys, welcome to Interior Insights. Today we are going to look at a beautiful 100 square meter apartment in the center of Hamburg that has been renovated by a couple who bought this apartment when it was basically a ruin. Somebody had lived here for over 80 years and smoked throughout his entire time, so the apartment was completely covered in black, oily nicotine film, and this is how they remodeled it. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe. So as we enter, we can already see that this apartment really just extends into a lot of different rooms, and we have a really spacious layout. The building was built in 1903, which is why we just have this really beautiful old building with a very modern design. So the beauty of these old buildings is the fact that you always have a lot of really beautifully structured old elements, such as the window frames or the door frames or the beautiful plaster moldings in the ceiling or this beautiful rosette on top of the lamps. And another really cool thing about these beautiful historic buildings is the fact that you always have the rooms framed by a lot of windows. And one thing that I didn't know that I think is actually really interesting is that here, where you can see the wall, there actually used to be a window, because if you look closely you can see that actually a window is missing. And this is a phenomena that you actually find in a lot of old historic buildings around Hamburg, because a long time ago people actually had to pay taxes for the amount of windows that they had. So often the owners would cover up 1 or 2 bit windows. And this is the exact same thing that has been done here, that actually a window has been covered up. And because this apartment is so old, you have all of these beautiful old structured architecture, such as these really high ceilings or the really high doors that go all the way up. And I think that it's just really beautiful. So we are already right now in the living room. And as you can see, the colors of the living room are very muted. You have this really beautiful pastel light green that really creates a very calming atmosphere. And you can see that the color of the green walls really correspond beautifully to the trees that we have outside, and you just have this melange of different colored greens, and you can find this green color throughout the design. And what I really love about the way that the color has been used is that not only do the different types of rooms seamlessly flow into each other. Like I said, this is the living room and you can just walk right to the kitchen, but also the color stays the same, but it changes slightly. We can see that the design language of this overall of the living room really consists of simple square geometry paired with a lot of round accents. So yet again we have all of these, like the square dining table, square cabinets, but then you have all of these like round lamps and organic shapes. And this really like breaks up the design and creates a much more fluffy and light design. This door that really connects the kitchen to the living room has also been completely closed and you weren't able to see anything. And when they bought this place, and they uncovered it, they didn't actually know that here you would actually find these beautiful historic doors that are over 100 years old. And I feel like this is just an amazing find if you buy a place and you just find these beautiful historic wooden doors. And you can see all of the historic details. If you have the possibility to live in a beautiful historic place, that doesn't mean that you have to stick to the old architecture, but rather through modern elements and through modern design, you can really enhance the old architecture and yet create something unique and something new. So for example, here, like I said, we have the beautiful Vitra chair, or here we have these really classical, modern, mid-century chairs. Through the contrast of these like old and new pieces, you really have this just beautiful and unique mix that really represents what your personal design taste is like. Or here, another thing I really like, of course, is we have all of these beautiful Werner Panton lamps, and we can find them repeated throughout the space, and they really add like a sense of cohesion throughout the design. So here we have them a really dark green, and they really like frame the table. I love it always if you don't have just one lamp, but if you have 2 or 3 lamps, I feel like repetition is always a really cool thing. Here we have 2 living room lamps, and again, because it's not just one lamp, it doesn't really feel lost, but you have 2 really big, confident lamps that really like take up the space and really own the space. And here the living room seamlessly opens itself up to the kitchen. And I love the fact that they just opened the space up and just created this really symmetrical entrance that really connects the 2 spaces in a very grand gesture, rather than just having like a small door on the side. And then you just have this perfect line, this perfect long kitchen block. So here we have a more darker green that acts as a more neutral and more of a calmer backsplash for the kitchen. Everything in this apartment is really minimalistic and every detail has been thought through. So the owners build a lot of things by themselves, so everything is really built in and you can just really feel that everything has been really properly done. What I love about this kitchen is the fact that it is just one single block that spreads from one side of the wall to the other side of the wall. So it's like a really bold but yet simple statement. And you have 3 beautiful lamps on top of the kitchen that really frame the space. And through this repetition of the lamps, the space feels really like thoroughly thought through. The kitchen countertop is made from sintered stone, which has like this beautiful rough texture, so it feels really warm and comfortable to work with. And you have this open gas stove, which is really cool because these days you don't really have this. We have a lot of really fun posters, such as these 2, that really integrate fruits and vegetables into the kitchen, and you know that this is a space where a lot of cooking and a lot of fun happens. In the kitchen we have just perfect compositions, such as the brown color of the farm table and the pink accent of the Werner Panton lamp. And again, we have all of these like beautiful green accents of the dark green wall or of the plants, and this just creates like a really homey, warm design. And I feel like why this design also works so well is because even though the main color of the kitchen is dark green and the colors used are quite neutral, I feel like all of the light that is used is really warm. It just feels like there's a really nice atmosphere created through the light in the kitchen. When the owners bought this place, they didn't know that underneath the old carpet that used to be inside this apartment, you actually had beautiful spruce wood hiding underneath. And well, they took away the carpet and now they just have this newly perfectly spruce wood wooden floor that is over 100 years old, and these days it's impossible to get exactly this type of wood. And another thing that's really cool is in the bathroom they actually use the wooden beams to create a unique piece of furniture. Here again we can see that you just have these beautiful door frames that just make the entry and exit from any room really unique and beautiful. So one of the owners has a really big talent for working with wood. He actually created a lot of the pieces, the wooden cabinets that you can find here by himself. Here we have just this beautiful big wooden cabinet that really frames the hallway and yet adds a lot of storage space that just like completely hides away all of your clutter. So if you walk through the hallway, you just have this big airy empty hallway, but because of this giant cabinet that goes all the way to the top, you still have a lot of storage space to hide away everything that you have. And I feel like what makes this feel so airy is the fact that on the one hand it seems really like integrated because it extends all the way to the ceiling. What I love about this hallway is also the use of lighting. So they didn't shy away from, again, framing the hallway with 2 beautiful sconces and add very geometric touches. The kitchen and the living room were both in 2 different shades of green, and here the color switches to a blue. As you move from one room into the next, the color changes and also the mood slightly changes. And if we go right directly to the office, The office is actually beige, but it looks really pink while you're in the hallway because of the contrast. And you can see that once we are actually inside the office, you still have this like warm hue, but it is just really enhanced through the hallway. Here again, we have a very inbuilt interior design. Rather than having like a lot of small closets and cupboards and a lot of small pieces, you just have these like big statement pieces that really ground the space. You aren't overwhelmed by your senses because you don't have like 5 small cupboards standing here. And I think that that's always a really good idea. This is a Luby Softline sleeping sofa, which is really cool because I feel like it looks really modern and sleek, and it extends into a guest bedroom if you have guests staying over. And over here we have the home office, which is also very minimalist, but you can just see in all of the details how much thought was put into every single piece of furniture that we can find here. In front of me we have a beautiful balcony that extends into the garden, and you just have a piece of outside and nature framed by the big windows. And I feel like balconies, even if it's just a small balcony, they just add so much quality of life to any space because you just have more of a connection to outside. And again, in this room we have like a really muted color palette, whereas in the living room we had more of calms, greens and blues. Here we have really dark and warm muted colors. I feel like all of the rooms in this apartment have their like really personal atmosphere and like personality, so when you enter them you feel a certain way, you feel a certain sense of coziness, comfortness. Now we will go inside the bedroom. This bedroom again is a vintage dream that you can just wish it was yours. We have this beautiful space of I think around 6 to 6 meters, which is a perfect size for bedrooms. This is what you always learn. As a wall color, you just have this really muted beige that really creates a very like earthy and grounding atmosphere. Again, we have the beautiful dark brown spruce wooden floor, and you just feel really, really calm. And what I love, if you have this much space, just have the possibility to create like a really perfectly symmetrical space. So in the center of the bedroom, you have of course the bed. To both sides of the bed, you have simple yet beautiful bedside tables that are framed by these black light sculptures. And I think that this is just really sleek. And opposite of the bed, you have again a perfectly symmetric repetition of two cupboards that have been connected to create like a sideboard. And again, they created a perfect composition that you could just take a picture of and it would be perfect. Another thing I really love is if people manage to incorporate their personal identity and just their personal, basically life story into their designs. One of the owners is a school teacher, so the owner really managed to incorporate her identity of being a school teacher into the design. So here we have a really old vintage school chair, and this is what is used to basically put your clothes at the end of the long day, or you just have this like multi-purpose space that again really tells your personal story, and I just really love that if that happens. Over here we have a beautiful lamp. It's called, I think, the lamp by Hay. And again, here we have just a massive inbuilt closet that just really like fades away into the background. For your perception, it almost acts like a wall. You feel like there's nothing hiding here, but it's just really about making simple but really big and profound gestures. Those are what really create like this calming atmosphere. Now we will go inside the bathroom. This is the bathroom. It is very minimalist, clean. The colors are all mostly grays and whites. You just have really beautiful light because of this beautiful sconce. I love it. I once already saw this lamp in the Milan Design Week and was just obsessed with it because it's really just like a light bulb. So here we have an inbuilt shower that really just hides itself away from the bathroom and that just creates yet a room inside the bathroom. Here we have an oval mirror. I told you before that the owners of this place use the spruce beams of the apartment to create a really unique piece of furniture, and this is it. So here we have these really old spruce wooden beams. Hi guys, welcome to Interior Insights. I'm Jane and we are standing in Paris in the heart of architecture and design, and today we are going to look at an 18th century mansion in the heart of Paris, right next to the Pantheon. And actually Right around the corner of this incredible house, Emily in Paris has been filmed, so we are really standing in the center of where everything is happening. This house is actually the home of the owner of Homani, which shows hand-picked and well-designed locations all around Europe. The couple bought this house for their family in 2003 and renovated the entire building. This mansion is over 200 years old and used to belong one single family before this and was just inherited throughout the generations. So this is the second family that is living here. And because the family has 4 kids, in 2016 a third level was added to the house to just fit the expansion of the family. But if you wouldn't know this, you wouldn't really see it because it was done very well. And you still just have the seamless historical French facade. As you know, in Paris, usually everything is quite tight and you don't have that much nature. So this house actually has its own garden with even a swimming pool. At the same time, we have this very calm little oasis in the center of the city. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. And now let's go inside. As we come in, we walk right inside the open living area. And you can see that even though we have a historic facade and the historic charm has been kept throughout the apartment, you still have a very modern place. The entire house has been renovated again in 2016, so we have a very high standard. As soon as you walk in, you are greeted by this expansive library and you can go into both directions. Over here we have the living room, and to the other side you can go inside the dining room, which then again leads you to the kitchen. Now, this is actually my absolute favorite part of the house, the heart of the home, and that is the kitchen. And the kitchen is just your absolute dream Parisian kitchen. The wooden panels are painted in a charcoal gray. And it just instantly reminds you that you are in Paris, in the heart of architecture. And I absolutely love and adore these panels. The kitchen actually is an extension of the building and formerly used to have a tilted roof, but the couple decided to exchange it for a flat roof so that you could have a terrace that I will show you later. Another little detail that just lightens up this kitchen is the light shaft that we have right above me. And it just brings in so much natural light and it's an absolute gem. And what I also love about this kitchen is that it isn't too luxurious or too pretentious, but that you just have a little round farmer's table and farmer's chairs that are standing around it. And you can just imagine the couple having a cup of coffee in the morning or writing down something, and it just feels very homey and just has a very, almost like a farm-like atmosphere. And I absolutely love it. And of course, in every proper Parisian kitchen, we need a cast iron metal oven, which is just absolutely incredible to have. On top of it, we again have this cast iron pot, and it just adds this very rustical, but of course, still sophisticated touch. Because we are so lucky, and the outside you have this little oasis of a garden. Whenever you do your dishes, you can just look outside through the historic French windows and look inside your garden and see the birds chirping, or currently it's raining, unfortunately. And you can just really feel in the energy of the room that this is the heart of the home. And just in this shelf, you can see the family's expansive collection of architecture and design books. And I love that a lot of family artworks have been kept. This, for example, is a sculpture of the grandfather, and it's just been passed throughout generations. And all of the little different sculptures and artworks we can see are just family treasures that have been collected throughout the years. And over here, we come into the living room area. Formerly, this part of the house actually used to be a bedroom, but the couple decided to turn it into an extension of the living room so that you have more space. The center of this room is the historic fireplace from the 18th century. And on top of the fireplace, we have a grand, luxurious gold mirror that just acts as a focal point, enlarges the room, and as soon as you enter the room, it just pulls and draws in your attention. And one little piece that I really like that also acts as decoration, but of course also has its own purpose, is this big harp that we have standing, because 2 of the kids of the families love to play the harp. And you see that it isn't hidden or tucked inside the corner. It just acts as a statement inside this room and gives it a very unique and lively atmosphere. With these historic architecture that stems from the French Revolution, the facades are always marked by very tall windows that go all the way up to the ceiling. And they give the wall its own little rhythm and at the same time let a lot of light come in. And this historic structure just floods the room with light and gives it its own little repetition. The furniture is very modern, so you have a very strong contrast of the historic facade and the historic structure of the building. And this contrast adds attention and makes it seem very effortless. And throughout the living space and also the rest of the rooms that we will have a look at, you have a very minimal and reduced color palette that speaks of sophistication and elegance. We have very muted colors like charcoal gray or soft browns and whites. Now, when I first came inside this house, I would have never guessed that the artwork that is hanging above the sofa table isn't actually a painting, but it's actually a photograph of a woman. And it has also been taken in Paris in a parking lot. And again, it just also draws in this very muted, sophisticated color palette, and it also just reminds me of this nostalgic Parisian flair. Over here we have a little desk where you can work during the day while looking outside into your little garden. The layout that we have in this house is very typical for houses that have a few different floors, so that the entire living area is in the ground floor. So when you have guests in, this is basically your public area where you entertain. But at the same time, all of the more private spaces, such as the bathrooms or bedrooms, are hidden upstairs, and you still have this privacy inside your own house. The dining room area is also very sophisticated and again has this muted and very relaxed color palette. We have a big wooden table and soft fabric chairs that just add this perfect balance of elegance and comfort, because this house was really meant to be the home of a family and not just a display of luxury. So every little detail is here to just turn this house into a home, and you can just feel it in every direction that you look at. And you can see that even though we have very modern furniture, we still have a very classical and symmetrical layout. So on top of the cabinet that spans across the wall behind the table, we have a very big artwork by a very cool French artist who loves to draw these tutus from the ballerina dancers. And the abstract artwork gives this room just a very relaxed, dreamy atmosphere. Now, behind this custom wooden door, the powder room and wardrobe is hiding, so that whenever you have guests staying over, everybody, or just the family themselves, everybody can just put their things inside here and close the door, and it just always looks neat whenever there's people coming over. And these are the types of rooms that are often forgotten or that you don't think about when creating your own space, but they're super important, well curated and clean atmosphere in your home. This little corner has been used again very well. You have a tucked in, almost hidden shelf where you can just display some of your favorite books, or we even have a fossil that has been put inside. And of course, family pictures are important, but it's also always important to remember to not just let them go out of hand. And this family just has a little curated collection of family portraits throughout the years, and it just collects them here in the staircase. And this is again a very simple yet great way to elevate a tight space. And now we will go inside the ensuite bedroom that actually takes up the entire first floor. And as soon as you walk in, you feel like you're in a hotel. You can definitely see that an interior designer has been at work, because the entire ensuite bedroom is equipped with custom cupboards in this dark walnut wood, and it just feels very luxurious and thoughtfully curated. And this is what's so genius about these custom shelves, is that they act almost like walls. You don't really notice them, but at the same time they store all of your clutter, and whenever you come home after a long day, everything is perfectly clean. So over here we have a little seating area where you can rest or read a book, and the entire row of Haussmannian windows has been draped with curtains on both sides of each window. And they just again create this repetition inside the design and just add this extra luxurious level of comfort, because you just have so much fabric inside this room. And here we walk into the actual proper bedroom that is again a very clean and minimalist space that just speaks of modern comfort and quiet luxury. You can again see that we have a perfect sense of symmetry inside the room that just cites the historic classical architecture of the building. At the same time, we still have all of these wooden touches that turn it from a regular bedroom into a hotel-like atmosphere. And on both sides of the bed, we have little niches that are completely covered in brown leather. And again, you just have this little hotel-like experience. And they're illuminated with beautiful golden lamps that just give off this very warm light. And over here, we even again have our own little chimney. Behind these walls, we have a wardrobe hiding, which seamlessly integrates itself into the wall. And on this side, we have our own little desk, as well as a bathroom. And here we have very historical pieces and a wooden desk. And the view again is the garden and the outside. And all of the clutter that comes with having a working area is hidden behind this wooden cabinet. Over here is the bathroom, and we are greeted by a freestanding, generous hot tub that is standing in front of a wall that has been paneled with dark walnut wood again. On one side we have a very big vanity with 2 sinks and a very large mirror that enlarges the space and lets the light bounce around in the room. And my favorite thing about this bathroom is actually that behind this wooden wall we have the toilet hiding, so we just have this very invisible situation that has been created. And on this side we again have a fully equipped shower. And as I told you in the kitchen before, the roof has been turned into a flat modern roof, so that this ensuite actually has its own little outside terrace. And you know that whenever you have a terrace, you just have so much more life quality, because in the summer you can open the doors and just let the outside flood in. You just have this natural extension of the space. And I love the fact that because of this light shaft, we can actually look inside the kitchen. Now, let me show you the 3rd floor that has been added in 2016. One of the only details where you can actually see that the 3rd floor isn't actually from the 18th century is because we have a modern staircase. And I love that the designer decided to do this, that you didn't just basically create a fake historical staircase, but that instead you accentuated and showed the marks that you left on the building with a modern one. And this is one of the few moments in the house you were reminded of the sometimes narrow spaces in Paris, because we have a very steep and very narrow staircase. Now, this is really the home of the kids, and this is the first of the 4 bedrooms that we will find here. And honestly, if I would have had this bedroom when I was a child, it would have been my absolute dream, because over here you have your own little space and the entire space is very minimal and modern, but you have this bright blue wall that just adds this very strong and bold accent, and I love it. And you can still see that the space itself is very curated. We have vases or plants or even a little seating area. And there's so many secrets hiding in this bedroom. So if we go upstairs, we come to the actual sleeping area. You can see that the staircase again has been marked with this bright blue railing, and it just again adds this almost postmodern aspect to the design. And now come upstairs with me. You just have your own little sanctuary, and little bits of the same bright blue color just create this very cohesive design story and make it feel very sophisticated, but at the same time still very modern. And the entire space is minimal and clean. And one of the few very cool things in this room is that over here we have a little net where you can relax. And this of course is amazing for a tight space because it just lets you use the space while still having a 2-story bedroom. I would have really loved this when I was a kid. And now to the absolute best thing that I've seen in this house yet, is that actually here, through this door, you actually have your own little entry into the bedroom of the second child. And you actually have 2 twins living here. So basically, when the twins were younger, they had this secret little passage that would let them just go to each other's rooms. This bedroom itself has the exact same layout as the other bedroom, but we have a very different design. So here the colors are even more muted. It's still very minimalist, but instead of all of the blue accents, we have black accents. So it feels much more minimal, and you can see that we have 2 Bauhaus prints here. The kids also have their own little library hiding behind the round staircase. And this again is just another great use of space and having multiple functions for the same space, because this exact wall could have just been kept completely unused. And the kids even have their own little bathroom, or multiple bathrooms, but I will just show you this one. And again, you have a perfectly curated, clean, minimalist space with 2 sinks, so nobody has to fight. It's just an absolute dream. Welcome home, guys. Behind me is an incredible loft in the center of Copenhagen in Denmark. It is located in Christianshavn, a really cool and upcoming quirky neighborhood in Copenhagen. The father of this designer is an artist, and in this video you will find out how that really influences this design. So stick to the video. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please go and subscribe. It is home to 2 really cool designers who really made the most out of the space. The apartment has only 55 square meters, and it has been transformed into an absolutely incredible loft. I would say that the main colors in this apartment are stainless steel, so kind of like this cold gray, and of course this beautiful eggshell yellow. And I think that these 2 colors really harmonize really well together, and everything else is just a beautiful array and range of colors. So I feel like what is really cool is that the designers didn't limit themselves to like a really strict color palette, but you can really see that the way that this apartment was achieved was by playing with design and being bold and trying out something new. As soon as you come in here, you're just amazed by the incredible color palette that is really delicate and really finely nuanced. For example, here we have these nice lemony pastel colored walls, but in between the frame we have a really nice pink to really complementary, add some contrast and add some color. And this is just a really small detail that just really shows you how much effort and how much love has been poured into this apartment throughout the years. And if we have a look at the different shapes that we find in this apartment, a lot of them are really square and simple because we have all of the stainless steel. So often if you have a material, it also translates into a certain design language that you will use. So all of the elements in steel that we have here are very straight. But these straight angles are really broken up, for example, by the seating area and by the round table, and you have a very free-flowing design here that really like brightens up the space or like opens up the space. You can see that the design is not too strict. For example, the cable from the lamp, instead of like hiding it, it was just placed here on purpose to create like an organic dynamic shape. And another thing that really like breaks up all of the straight lines is the beautiful sofa that we already talked about. It's a very organic and natural shape, unlike other sofas. Some of them are very square. The living room consists of a really open, lofty floor plan. We have an open kitchen niche, and it is made completely from stainless steel. And this just gives it a really sleek and modern finish that isn't too elegant, but that seems very rustic, even though it still has a really high quality. And this is the window. Behind this window, the bathroom is hiding. And the window really like frames this place and acts kind of as an artwork. It is framed again by metal steel shelves from both sides. And because they are mounted to the wall, they really give this place like a really airy and nice look. And in front of me, we have the second part of the kitchen, which has all the essentials that you need. And what is really cool is that it actually is on rolling things, that you can actually roll it around and move it around and like adjust it. And this just really gives you a lot of flexibility. Cool hidden perk, I need to figure out where the light switch is. So as you cook, you have a beautiful lamp, and it just really like beautifully frames this part of the kitchen. The other side of the kitchen, we are already in the living room. As I said, this apartment has an open floor plan. You have a lot of rustic materials, for example, the white walls that have been whitewashed and give everything like a really rustic feel. Or we have like the industrial steel pipes that come out from behind. But at the same time, we have a lot of like really luxurious designer items, such as these beautiful Vitra chairs or the famous lean rosé Togo sofa chairs, which are just really cool. And they're in this beautiful brown. And you can see, as I said before, the color palette in this apartment is really nuanced. And I think one of the reasons that it is this way is because everywhere you look, you have a lot of art. So the really unique thing about this place is the fact that the father of the designer used to be an artist, or is an artist. And because of this, we have all of these beautiful artworks that really make the apartment one of its kind. And I think that this is what also gives the color palette such a nuanced feel, because everything is really thoughtful. And because of all of the different artworks, we have a lot of different colors. And sometimes the colors are like pulled from the artworks and integrated into the apartment, such as the greens we can find again in all of the trees that are here, and they really like brighten up the space and give it more of a playful touch. Over here, we again have really cool artworks that really frame this wall. We can see that all of the artworks really have a different scale, and nobody really tried to make them fit in and make them fit into the space. You can see that instead of like lining them up in one straight line, everything is like placed really loosely and playful, and this just gives everything a really playful approach. And I think that's what this apartment is really about, playing and having fun. Behind this wall we have the bedroom, and it is also, instead of just having regular doors, the designer took the doors away and basically just created like a beautiful arch that was again also repeated here. And behind the wall we have again a really beautiful artwork. Because of these open arches, the one room really speaks to the other one, and both of them influence with each other, because you always have this like direct contact. You can always look what's behind the wall, and I think this is what really like creates an interesting dialogue. Here as wall materials we have again this cool whitewashed brick that adds this rustic effect, and the rest of the walls are actually painted pink. I think that's really fun. Like I said before, we can already see and peek at the pink from the other side. This arch here is painted yellow, while this square arch here, the inside is painted pink. So again, we have like this really playful approach, and the ceilings everywhere are just kept in the like sleek open concrete. They aren't painted, and this is again something that really creates like this industrial look. What is so cool about this apartment is that everything on the one hand is like meticulously designed throughout every single nudge, and everything is perfect, but at the same time the design feels really effortless. I feel like the designers aren't trying too hard. For example, here, instead of having like some fancy wardrobe, you just have a really simple steel frame where you can hang your clothes. Also, one of my favorites, instead of having a complex shelf, you just have this, basically this artwork with a lot of different pockets where you can just put your things inside. And of course this requires a certain amount of minimalism with what you can collect and with what you can have in your own home, but I think it's just really fun if this is the definition of having a cupboard in your home. and I love it. Or also here, like as I said, one of the materials that are really dominant in this place and are repeated again and again in this apartment is stainless steel. For example, here, it's a bit difficult to show, but here we have these really beautiful, simplistic stainless steel bedside tables. And this is also a really cool example of how something can be really simple and minimalistic and just perfect, but at the same time it's very rustic and it really suits the overall design. Or up here, for example, we have a beautiful designer lamp by Paul Henningsen. It is in a special design that is also made from stainless steel. So you can really see that the design language is really kept consistent and coherent. Here again we have two custom cabinets that are basically facing each other, and I think this is just really cool because the cabinet on the one hand acts as a room divider because this is where the entryway is, and it really zones the loft and creates like spaces inside the big room, but at the same time it's a very functional thing and it hides all of your clutter away so that you still have this eclectic but still very clean and thoughtful design. Another really cool thing about this apartment is the balcony. So we actually have two balconies, but I will just show you one for now. You get to overlook your street and have a look into the green nature. I think it is quite nice. And also over here, you can see that the designers painted the outside blue, and you have yet another color into the design. And the blue really adds a nice contrast to all of the green colors that we have here, or also to the red brick walls that we have. And also the seating area and the table is really inbuilt, and it is amazing because of how simple it is and how genius it is. The table you can see is, I would believe it's custom made. It is just like a steel frame that has been hung over the balcony fence. And another secret gem inside this apartment that is often overlooked, but I think here you can just see how much love and detail was put into this apartment, is in the bathroom. The bathroom is quite small, but well, have a look. The colors in this apartment are very neutral. You have just white and like a mint, like a faded mint color, and this bright yellow shower curtain. And I think it just creates a really fun, bold, and really cool design, especially in a place where usually people, they just forget about the bathroom. They feel like, oh well, nobody will go in there, nobody will pay attention to it. So the brand that was used for these beautiful tiles is called D-Tile, and I believe they are from Sweden. And you can just see that they are absolutely incredible. So they have a lot of different custom tiles, and ones that really like curve themselves around a corner, or like here. If you have a look, this is just like a crazy, insane attention to detail. Another thing that's quite cool is that some of the custom tiles have like little nudges and edges that go out where you can like put your toothpaste, where you can put your toothbrush. Or for example, over here at the back in the shower, you have a tile that basically just like extends out. So basically it's like convex niche. You can see everything here is perfect. And also the pipe, instead of trying to like hide the pipe, it was enhanced by just painting it bright blue, and I think that that's also really cool. So yeah, if you're in Copenhagen, come and see this eclectic apartment. Thank you very much for watching the video. Let me know what your favorite part of this amazing, incredible loft was, because I have a lot of favorites and I'd love to know yours, so comment them below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please go and subscribe. Next week we will go to Nice in France and film a really beautiful Belle Epoque villa, so stay tuned. So please subscribe. See you soon.